defect is corrected. So these are some of the test execution steps that you do. Then the other step is to evaluate exit criteria and reporting. So what do you do in evaluating exit criteria and reporting? Exit criteria evaluation is an activity where test execution is assessed against the defined objective. So in test planning, we have discussed that you define the exit criteria, define what you set a criteria that your test execution should fulfill. Only then you can exit any test execution phase. So for example, no severity 1 and 2, or no high severity and critical severity defect should be open. All of them should be closed, fixed and verified and closed. So this is these sort of criteria. So you evaluate the exit criteria, whether the execution that you have done actually meets the exit criteria, actually is assessed against the defined objective, and if it meets that criteria, you can complete the testing. So this should be done for each test level. So evaluating exit criteria, it's not a one-time activity, it should be done for each test level. And then exit criteria is set based on risk assessment for each level, and exit criteria evaluation ensures that we have done enough testing to exit testing or test level. So we define exit criteria in the test planning itself, and once we do risk assessment, once we meet the exit criteria, or once we ensure that we have met the exit criteria, it ensures that we have done enough testing, and we can finish our test level now, or we can finish the testing now. Then major tasks in evaluating exit criteria. What are the major tasks when you are evaluating the exit criteria? You check test logs against the exit criteria specified in test plan. So as exit criteria is specified in test plan, so how do you evaluate the exit criteria? You check the test logs, and so test log is like your test execution percentage. You check defect raised, fixed and outstanding against the criteria specified in the plan. So exit criteria would be something like minimum 95% test cases should have been executed to exit functional test cycle. So or all high and severe defects need to be fixed and verified to exit the test cycle. So these are these are some of examples which will be mentioned in the exit criteria. So what you do is you take the test logs. Test log is nothing but the actual daily summary kind of report, which shows what is the execution percentage as of today, and you cross-check it with the exit criteria specified in the plan. And if the test execution percentage or the defect raised, fixed, outstanding percentage meets the criteria, then you can exit your test cycle. Then other task is to assess if more tests are needed, or if the exit criteria specified should be changed. Okay, so in case the exit criteria is not being met, all right, then you need to assess if more tests are need to be executed, or more tests need to be added. or you need to modify the test, or you need to change the test, change the exit criteria. So this is the second step. So based on the exit criteria, you make assessment if more tests are required to fulfill exit criteria. So suppose exit criteria says 95% test cases should be executed to exit testing, and you have just executed 80% of the test cases. So you need to execute 15% more test cases in order to exit the test cycle. Then the other thing can be, still there are some defects pending to be fixed. You need to fix those defects in order to exit the test cycle. Then project risks increased, and so need to change exit criteria by consulting stakeholders. So in case the exit criteria that was mentioned was pretty was not very strict, but when the testing started, you started to find lot many SEV 1 and SEV 2 defects, and you are not able to release the software because of those SEV 1 and SEV 2 defects. So you need to you can either make your exit criteria more strict or lenient based on whether you want to release the software with those known issues. So you need to consult the stakeholders. So exit criteria can be modified, but it's never recommended to modify exit criteria once it is set in the beginning. But yes, if stakeholders do agree that no, it is very critical to release the software, then you need to consult with the stakeholders and make sure that every defect that is remaining goes as a known issue with the software, known issue template with the software. So this exit criteria can be changed, can be made more strict or lenient after consulting with the stakeholders. Then writing a test summary report for stakeholders. So that's another task in evaluating exit criteria. So you write test summary report for the stakeholders. So preparing the test summary report and distributing with all the stakeholders, which helps stakeholders make the release decisions about the software. So with the exit criteria, you prepare all the test summary report, how the testing has progressed, how much percentage of test cases have been executed, how many defects have been raised, how many of them are pending, and based on that test summary report, stakeholders make decisions about releasing the software or not. Then the last is test closure activities. In test closure activities, you collect data from completed test activities to consolidate experience. Major tasks in test closure activities are. So test closure is just collection of data from completed test activities and to consolidate the whole test activity, to consolidate whole test experience, how it was, how many test cases executed, pass, fail, defects raised, fixed, still outstanding, deferred. So all these activities, all this data will be collected and consolidated. So major tasks in test closure activities are: check which planned deliverables have been delivered. So like whatever you plan to deliver, so like test strategy, plan, test cases, extra. So whether these planned deliverables are delivered or not. All incident reports have been resolved. Either they are fixed or they are deferred after consulting with stakeholders. Then finalize and archive testware for later use. So you need to finalize an archive testware. So testware is any test related documentation like test plans, test strategy, test cases. Any testing related document is testware. So you need to finalize all the testing related document or testware for later use. So like test case scripts, test environment, any other test infrastructure, you need to finalize it and archive it. Then other activities are handover testware to the maintenance organization. So it's not necessary that after software is developed and released, so it's not necessary that the person or the organization who developed the software will be maintaining it. A maintenance organization can be different. So it is very necessary that you whatever testware like test cases, scripts, test plans, strategy that you have developed, it's you need to archive it, and you need to hand over that testware to the maintenance organization, because this testware will be required by the maintenance organization. So maintenance organization can be a different organization other than who developed the software, and they will need the testware for maintenance changes. So in maintenance testing, as we discussed, like there will be new features coming, and there will be production defects coming. So once those defects are fixed, maintenance testers need to fix those, need to verify those defects. So in order to verify the defects, they need any sort of test cases that were already written while the software was being developed. So all this testware needs to be archived and handed over to the maintenance organization. That's another test closure activity. Then other activities to evaluate the testing and analyze lessons learned for future releases and projects. This is the most important closure activity, to analyze, to evaluate and analyze testing and analyze lessons learned, what went wrong in this release, which you should never do in future releases. So what this does is it helps to improve the whole software development lifecycle and test process, and improve test design and execution methodologies for reducing invalid defects. So suppose in this test cycle you found 200 defects in 500 test cases, that's a bit of concern. So you can analyze what went wrong during development, where it was lacking during development. Why were there so many defects? Was it because not good developing standards were followed? So you just need to dig the root cause and analyze how the release has been done, and then which will help us to reduce any more defects, and will help in future releases for testing and development activities. So to conclude, in this session we learned about fundamental test process and all the major steps involved in the test process. So the fundamental test process consists of 5 major steps. First one is planning and control, analysis and design. Then third is implementation and execution. Fourth is evaluating exit criteria and reporting. And finally, the test closure activities. So in test planning and control, you write your test plan and you figure out all the major aspects that are required in the test planning. In the control is an ongoing activity wherein you see what's the progress of testing and you control if there is any lag in testing. Then analysis and design, you analyze test scenarios, and then you design, you use certain test design techniques to design some of the tests. In implementation and execution, you do the actual test implementation, write the test cases, and you prepare the test environment, and you do actual test execution in this step. Then finally, you evaluate the exit criteria. You see how the testing has progressed, what is the current state of the testing, how the testing looks like right now, and whether it meets the exit criteria defined during in the test plan. And if it meets the test plan, you exit that test cycle, and then you do the final test reporting. And then finally, you do the test closure activities, wherein you just archive the test, where hand it over to the maintenance organizations for future use. Thank you.